The Los Ranchos Historical Society. Oh, well, then I don't know if these people really, we'll see. Um, I was going to make an announcement with the broadcast just simply because hopefully some people heard Gordine say that the Los Ranchos Historical Society was giving a talk Saturday on Rodolfo Anaya. However, due to illness, it got rescheduled for March the 15th. So for all of you that were coming, it's been rescheduled. You too? March 15th at 1, but there'll be more announcements. So. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm calling the meeting to order Wednesday, October 23rd, special meeting. And the time now is about 6:05 in the evening. Okay, the meeting is streamed on the village website. And as with any application, digital service or software, the opportunity for failure can occur. Therefore, the village is not responsible for the inability to view the meeting via live stream. The meeting video and audio are recorded and will be available online after the meeting on the village website. I would like to start by saying that as required by NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1J of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, that the matter discussed in the closed session was limited only to what was specified in the notice. Pursuant to NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1H7, attorney-client privileged in confidential discussions regarding litigation between the Village of Los Ranchos and Palindrome Communities, LLC, Palindrome Properties Group, LLC, and Trailhead at Chamisal, LLP, and litigation between the Village of Los Ranchos and the Friends of Los Ranchos and Nancy Nangeroni. Let me now call the roll. Trustee Benavides.
Here.
Trustee Kiefer.
Here.
Trustee Radnovich is excused. Trustee Rhino here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve or amend the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Among the governing body? Mr. Benavides?
None.
None, okay. Okay, So this meeting tonight is revolving around number 5, which is new
Mayor
business.
Pro Tem, excuse me, you need to call for the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, let me call for the vote. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Keith?
Yes.
Trustee Rana, yes. Okay. New business. Action by the Board of Trustees to approve or disapprove a proposed settlement agreement regarding certain claims made in litigation by and among Friends of Los Ranchos Incorporated, Nancy Nangeroni, the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Palindrome Communities LLC, Palindrome Properties Group LLC, and Trailhead at Chamisal LLP. All provisions of the proposed settlement agreement have been discussed by the Board of Trustees in one or more closed sessions conducted in accordance with the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. Due to discussions in the closed sessions being subject to attorney-client privilege, such discussions cannot be reiterated here. The special meeting is solely for the purpose of conducting a vote by the Board of Trustees to approve or disapprove the proposed settlement agreement. I'd like now to introduce Attorney Vince Ward, who will take us through the agreement.
Mayor Pro Tem, trustees, my name is Vince Ward. I'm the legal counsel that has been retained by the village to represent it in the various cases that are pending in district court in New Mexico. There are 4 cases pending, 2 of which have been consolidated that the Friends of Los Ranchos have brought, and Ms. Nangeroni as a plaintiff. Just as background, I think everybody is aware that there have been at least a couple of rulings that are relevant and material to the consideration of the settlement agreement. There was a decision by Judge Barella Shepard that declared the prior approvals of the plats and the plans for the project invalid under the village's ordinances, as well as the Open Meetings Act. That case is still pending. There is a motion for reconsideration that is currently pending that was filed by Palindrome. There, related to that case, there is a case pending that is specifically related to the Open Meetings Act, but is essentially the same issue. There is a case pending related to the anti-donation clause before a separate judge. So the settlement agreement, another case that is material but not a part of this settlement is the case that was recently litigated in front of Judge Lujan, the case where the issue of whether the project should be stopped came up. The reason that that ruling is material, although not a part of this settlement, is that Judge Lujan had ruled that as part of her findings, even though the project was not stopped, that Palindrome was supposed to go through the village's ordinary process, public process for the approval of the plats and the plans. After the hearing in front of Judge Lujan, which I know a lot of people observed and participated in, I was approached by counsel for both Friends of Los Ranchos and Palindrome to discuss the possibility of resolving the cases that Friends of Los Ranchos has pending against the village. That process, although I couldn't tell you exactly how many weeks it's taken, has been a robust back and forth between the parties to arrive at the proposed settlement agreement. I can tell you, I'm prepared to go through the settlement agreement, but I will tell you that Friends of Los Ranchos and Ms. Nangeroni have already executed the settlement agreement, as has the Palindrome. So both parties have indicated their agreement with all of the terms of the settlement agreement, and the only thing that is pending is the approval or disapproval of this board. In terms of the material provisions in the agreement, and this is a point of clarification for you all and for the public, The settlement agreement was originally included, I believe, when the agenda went out. There has been a modification to one section of the proposed settlement agreement that I will cover later. But the version that you all will be asked to approve or disapprove is slightly different from the version that originally went out with the agenda. And I believe that the current version of this settlement agreement has been made available for people to have access to. But I will explain the difference. This is entitled a settlement agreement and release. I would say that this is generally a standard type of settlement agreement that you would see in a case like this, but there are some unique provisions related to this case. On the first page, the parties are identified. The plaintiffs are identified as Friends of Los Ranchos and Ms. Nangeroni. The defendants are listed as the Village of Los Ranchos and the entities that comprise Palindrome. So there are actually 3 different entities, but when I say Palindrome, I'm referring to all 3 of those entities. The agreement makes clear that the purpose of this settlement is to discharge the cases that the Friends of Los Ranchos currently has pending against the village. Those cases are specifically set forth on the first page under paragraph A, and they're collectively referred to as the lawsuits. B is the section, if you go to page 2, B is the section that discusses the consideration. The consideration that exists in this agreement is that the Friends of Los Ranchos will be paid $175,000. The payment will be split equally between the village and Palindrome. So the village's share of that $175,000 is $87,500. Just for perspective about what the $175,000 represents, because this concerns the Open Meetings Act, the Open Meetings Act allows for the recovery of attorney's fees to a prevailing party. The $175,000 number was a negotiated amount that reflects a discount of what would have been requested from the Friends of Los Ranchos had a settlement not been agreed to. I think the other material point for you all to consider as part of this is that it is not particularly likely that a court would require Palindrome to contribute to any payments for attorney's fees because the Open Meetings Act applies to the governmental entity. So without this agreement, I think there would be a strong likelihood that if there was an award of fees, that the village would be on the hook for paying all of those fees. So this settlement agreement ensures that there's contribution from Palindrome. There is additional consideration under the settlement agreement that is spelled out in paragraph C. These provisions are an attempt to provide clarity with respect to the process moving forward. The intention of paragraph C is to ensure that and to end all controversy about whether Palindrome will participate in the village's ordinary public process for the approval of plats and site development plans. Within paragraph C, it makes it clear that these meetings will be conducted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. So from the village's perspective, there was a strong sense of trying to ensure that the transparency that may not have existed previously will exist moving forward. Another material aspect of this is that because Palindrome has agreed to go through the public process where members of the community will have an opportunity to participate, the plaintiffs, that is Friends of Los Ranchos and Ms. Nangeroni, have agreed that they will not oppose that process, which makes sense because that's the process that they've been advocating for, to have a process that follows the Open Meetings Act. And while they are agreeing that they will not oppose that process because they agree with it, it retains the ability to make other types of objections throughout the process of approving the plats and the plans. And I believe we've already seen, at least in the process that has started so far, that there have been some objections raised by the Friends of Los Ranchos. But the important point is to realize that there are process objections and then there are other types of substantive objections. All of the parties agree that we're going through the proper process now, and that's laid out in this agreement. We also try to create some sense of a schedule. Now, please keep in mind that there isn't any way to lay out a perfect schedule for the approval of all these documents because some of them depends. It depends on what happens at particular meetings, things may change. But the point is that Palindrome has agreed that they are going to abide by a schedule to submit their applications at each step of the process. And as it currently stands, that isn't ordered by either of the cases that have been ruled on so far. So that is a benefit, that is certainly a benefit of the settlement agreement. So if you move on to the, let's see, the third page, and I'm referring to paragraph Roman numeral 5, part of the consideration for this agreement is that Palindrome will receive an extension to complete their project to March 31st, 2025. I think we all know that the development agreement had laid out and specified a deadline for completion of project. The development agreement gives discretion to the village to change the timing of the approval of the construction. And so this is an attempt to provide a realistic date for the completion of construction. And again, I would point out that this is all language that Friends of Los Ranchos has also agreed with. The settlement agreement would lay out that the village is going to operate in good faith for dealing with any delays. If there happens to be delays that are caused by things that are outside the control of Palindrome, that the village is going to be reasonable with respect to the consideration of any future extensions. Paragraph 6 is a very important paragraph, and so I want to be very detailed about this. One of the issues that I believe is important for you all to be aware of and for the public to be aware of is that the parties have endeavored to ensure that the board's discretion to decide the plats and the plans is not affected by other approvals that the village has already given to Palindrome. So despite the fact that there may be certain approvals like infrastructure permits and things like that that have already happened, the law requires this board to remain non-predecisional and to preside over a quasi-judicial hearing in a way that allows for the fair presentation of evidence. And so what we've worked really hard to try to do here is to make clear that while the status quo of any prior approvals remains in place, that with respect to the decisions that are at the core of the controversy in the litigation brought by Palindrome, that is the approval of the plats and plans, that the board's discretion with respect to those plats and plans is not affected. And so in the version before you, there's actually language that has been highlighted, and there's been some change to that language to try to make sure that this is perfectly clear. And I'm just going to read it. The language says that the approval of the infrastructure permits, and importantly, this is the changed language, or any other previous approvals related to the project do not bind or require the village to approve the plats and site development plan outlined in paragraphs C1, 4, and 7. And that is the plats and the plans for every single phase of the project. That is phases 1 through 6. Paragraph Roman numeral 7 deals specifically with phases 4, 5, and 6. It makes clear that that Palindrome is not going to move forward with the approval of the plats and the plans for 4, 5, and 6 until after the completion of 1, 2, and 3. And that we will, that's the completion of construction and also the certificate of occupancy. And the village will understandably agree to extensions for the completion of phases 4, 5, and 6 that may differ from what's in the development agreement because of where we are in the overall timetable. So paragraph C is largely the consideration and the attempt among Palindrome and the village to lay out what I think will be a feasible, reasonable, predictable schedule moving forward, something that hasn't existed previously and wouldn't exist but for entering into the settlement agreement. The remaining language becomes very legalese attempts to ensure that it is known that the Friends of Los Ranchos is waiving and releasing all of their claims related to the issues that were brought in the lawsuit or that could have been brought in the lawsuit. It demonstrates that the settlement agreement was negotiated at arm's length and that it's for the mutual benefit of all of the parties. And as having participated in the arm's length transactions, I can assure you that there was robust back and forth between all of the parties to try to arrive at this compromised agreement. The settlement makes clear that the parties have had the opportunity to advise and consult their attorneys. The Friends of Los Ranchos have been represented by Matt Beck throughout the negotiation of the settlement agreement. He's also represented Ms. Nangeroni. When you go to the general terms and conditions, paragraphs 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all language that's intended to make clear the release of claims against the village. If this settlement agreement is approved, all of the cases that the Friends of Los Ranchos has brought against the village will be dismissed with prejudice. And that means that all of the activity within those cases will go away. That activity includes the motion for reconsideration that's currently pending, any attempts to appeal the Barella-Shepard ruling. There is a trial that is scheduled in the next 3 weeks in one of the cases. So all of those cases will be dismissed with prejudice, and there will be certainty that that chapter of this process will go away. And so I believe that what the settlement agreement accomplishes is first and foremost certainty moving forward for all of the parties about the process for the consideration of this project. It stops the hemorrhaging to the village of all of the litigation and legal costs that's going into this. I think if you look at the expense going back years now to when this controversy began, it would not surprise me if the village's legal expenses have been in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $100,000 a month. And I think that that's not sustainable or responsible for the continuation. I think that there's a strong likelihood that because of the ruling that has already been made in the Judge Barella-Shepard case, that the court is likely to award attorney's fees. And I think that it is probable that the Friends of Los Ranchos would seek attorney's fees that are significantly more than the portion that the village will be paying through the settlement agreement. And the amount that the village would possibly have to pay to the Friends of Los Ranchos. I think that the settlement agreement ensures that the openness of the process is certain, that there's an avenue for public participation and input throughout the remainder of the process, and that the board retains its ability to be neutral, non-predecisional, and to preside over a quasi-judicial hearing as required under New Mexico law. And I believe that the timing of the approval of the settlement agreement is critical, because if the settlement agreement isn't approved soon and the parties then move toward preparing for upcoming litigation, I think it strongly disincentivizes the Friends of Los Ranchos to provide the discount of attorney's fees that is currently considered in this agreement. So while no settlement agreement is perfect and they always constitute a compromise, I would strongly recommend to the board that it approve the settlement agreement and release as offered and as already executed and approved by the other parties.
Okay, before we then move on, is there a motion to approve the settlement agreement?
I'll make a motion to approve the updated settlement agreement. Do I need to get any more specific than that? That's before us today.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion from the board. Let me call on Trustee Benavides.
Well, you know, I realize a lot of work went into this, and, you know, yet to get 3 different parties to agree to something is not easy. And as Attorney Vince Ward said, it's not perfect, but it's something that all the parties can live with, so I'm okay with it.
Okay. Trustee Kiefer?
So I agree with this settlement agreement. I think as a village, we have said for a while we need to stop the bleeding. The fact that all 3 entities have agreed is commendable. Thank you, Attorney Mr. Ward, for getting that to happen. I know there was a lot of us sending you back to do more and do more and do more, and you delivered. So thank you for that. The fact that Palindrome is paying for some of it, and paying for some of the responsibility that truly falls on the village for violating the Open Meetings Act, is commendable to get them to do that. So, and you know, it's an acknowledgement of what the residents were saying in 2022, that the previous administration was not listening. And Denise Barella Shepherd's ruling solidified that, and what put everybody in this position. So I'm happy that we can stop the bleeding. I'm happy that the acknowledgement is there that the laws were violated. I know I'm not going to be part of the process, so I don't envy my 2 trustee colleagues that are up here that are going to have to be part of it. But I strongly encourage remembering your oath, looking at the laws, following the laws, complying with the laws, so that we don't end up with another lawsuit. Because I think you know, that's a possibility, and so we've got to be very careful, which is why the due diligence of Attorney Ward of protecting the discretion of this board and of the planning and zoning was extremely important, because I learned very quickly that what you say as a private citizen can be used against you in an elected capacity. And so I encourage my planning and zoning committee members to really examine conscience and what they say as sitting commissioners. And I really encourage my fellow trustees that are going to have opinions on this to do an examination of conscience of what was done and is done as sitting trustee members, because there's a lot at stake, and this village deserves fair representation. And I think the settlement is a start to get us there. There's just a lot of more work to be done.
Okay. I had the opportunity to be involved directly in the negotiations that have been going on for the last 4 or 5 months. And there were some, we've had some successes, we had some challenges, but I think that, Mr. Ward, and again, with the assistance of Attorney Chappell, kind of at times had to pull me off the ledge, so to speak, in order to kind of come to some realization about what was going on here. And as Mr. Ward suggested, I mean, this is an imperfect solution. There are very few people who believed that this project was the project that had been, foretold by previous administrations. But it stops the additional hemorrhaging in terms of dollars for the village, and we all have a fiduciary responsibility to the village and to all of you as citizens. It provides then for the cases to be dismissed, but most of all, it comes back to ensuring that there's going to be transparency in the process, and I think that the comments by Trustee Kiefer are right on track, that we need to make sure that we abide by ordinances, by the law. This process is going to take a while in terms of the final approvals of the plats and plans. Needs to go through the P&Z, who will again take a look at it. It'll be involvement of the Planning and Zoning Department that will take a look at it. And so, again, it provides a way for us to be assured that we're looking at this thing carefully. This is also an opportunity for the residents of the village to share their concerns. And so participate in those meetings. If there are concerns that come up regarding approvals, again, the Board of Trustees serves as a quasi-judicial entity, and we'll certainly listen to those as well. So the full participation of the village residents, I think, is very important to this process. And that's something that I think we will certainly try to ensure that it occurs at every level of review. And one of the things that I think is important is that it really provides opportunity for the board to make decisions and not be subjected legally to previous decisions that have been made by the village. And I think that's certainly a major step forward in terms of the agreement. So again, want to thank again Mr. Ward, Mr. Chappell, for your participation in this. Certainly thank all of the residents of the village for hanging in with us through this process, and hopefully we can be able to then move on and be able to get to the work that's required by all of us in order to improve the quality of life in the village. So Thank you all. Let me, is there any further discussion from the governing body?
I have none.
Okay. Okay. So let me call the question. Again, the question is the motion to approve the updated settlement agreement. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Rhino? Yes. Okay, motion carried 3-0. Okay. This concludes the meeting this evening. And is there a motion then to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Yeah.
Adjourn. Oh, the time is 6:37.